Efanye, and hello to everyone here. Like been said, my name is Sylvia Iwejuo. I'm a lawyer in Nigeria. I work voluntarily also with a lot of NGOs, most especially with FIDA. I've been doing this for the past 17 years. I'm currently the director of the Imo Multi-Door Courthouse in Iwejuo. I would honestly say that this topic that we are dealing with, domestic violence as well as rape on women and children, is a very sensitive one, and it's most welcome at this time. I need to tell us that the issue of rape and the issue of domestic violence is not a new one. The only thing that has happened is that in line with societal changes right now, there is a lot of social media awareness, one, and then also the societal values are depreciating so much by the day. It's not just about rape and domestic violence. It's cut across all the fabric of our Nigerian nation. Let me put it that way. Okay, so that's why there seems to be a whole lot of attention going on with domestic violence and rape. Now, everyone that has spoken, every one of us that has spoken before has done a good job of defining what rape is, defining what domestic violence is. But I also need to tell us that domestic violence doesn't just have to do with intimate partners alone. You know, domestic violence happens even between children and their parents. You bear me witness that if you've been on the social media, in the last 3 days or 4 or so, there's been one that has been trending about a family in Ireland, a Nigerian family in Ireland, about a guy that went into the mother's kitchen and scattered all her stuff. You know, and the guy recently, I think a day or 2 later, made some posts saying that the mother was violent on him and all that and all that. Whether that's be true or not, that's not what we're going to deal with now. But there's been issues, instances of parents being violent on their children. There's been instances of masters being violent on their help. There may be their mates, their drivers, their servants, and all of that. So it's not just about intimate partners alone. And I would also say that I like the idea of the solutions being shown up as ways to go forward. And I would honestly say that in the course of my work in this past year, I've come to find out that solutions to domestic violence and rape, and rape is a kind of sexual offense anyway, so I would say solution to domestic violence and sexual offense is basically two-pronged. One is this: enlightenment, which Professor Ifoma, I think that's her name, which Professor Ifoma has talked about. Enlightenment, public awareness, and all of that is one. And then also provision of shelters, which she talked about also, is another. Okay? And I would tell you that if we are doing anything on domestic violence and sexual offenses without attacking it this way, we are not getting it. Why? Because you need to enlighten people, both the victims, their caregivers, even the offenders. You need to enlighten them. Why do I even include the offenders? Some, out of ignorance, do these things. Why do I say out of ignorance? I had a study I did some time ago in the past about rape and HIV. And you'll be shocked at what I discovered. Part of what I discovered was in the early days of HIV, some people that had HIV thought that sleeping with young people, especially virgins, was able to cure their HIV. And you find out that that mentality, some people still have it, even up till now. As regards other sexually transmitted diseases, they'll tell you that the status of the virgin takes away every of their blood, away every of their sexually transmitted diseases. That in fact that the virgin makes them pure again. You know, and that's why you find out that there are, inclusive of victims of rape, there are babies as young as old, months old. And you begin to ask yourself, what is the pleasure that is in raping a 5-month-old baby, 2-month-old baby, as even I heard recently? You know, and aside that also, there is this aspect of rituals that comes with it about raping children and taking away their destinies and all of that. So I would say that the victims, their caregivers or their guardians, and the offenders need to be enlightened. Aside the government, these people need to be enlightened. Why? Because when you do that, you find out that with the knowledge they have acquired, they will be able to nip in the bud when it begins to grow. For instance, the offenders, when it begins to grow, thoughts of doing that kind of thing. Then you will also be able to give the victims measures that they could use to protect themselves, just like Obiokeke rightly said here. Me, I'm an advocate of pepper spray. I tell every young girl I know, carry pepper spray. When the thing becomes unbecomable, just spray your thing and begin to find your way. By the time you finish finding your way, the offender tries to recover, you would have gone a long way out of danger zone. I think that is also that. Now, talking about shelter, like I said, it's two-pronged. The second one is shelter. You can't do anything tangible for a domestic violence victim or a rape victim without successfully removing that person from that scene of danger immediately. Why? Because why most domestic violence victims stay put where they are being abused is because they don't have an immediate place they will get to. Now, I was a secretary. I was the secretary of FIDA in Abia State for so many years. We successfully ran, I don't know how it is now because it's been a long time I left Abia State. We successfully ran a shelter home. It wasn't a big place. It was a 3-bedroom flat. But we got it in an area of town that had responsible people living in that same compound. And now what we used to do is that we had lawyers, young lawyers that were there. If we had incidents of domestic violence reported somewhere, and we assessed it and thought that the person was in immediate danger of more violence if the person is not removed, what we do is to immediately remove the person, have the person lodged in our apartment for as long as is possible, you know, and from there begin to make contact with her relatives to find alternative ways of securing a good accommodation with her. And I tell you that helps a lot. Why? Because that immediate satisfaction, that immediate comfort of, oh, thank God I'm not in that danger zone alone, is enough to revive that person. But no matter what you do, if you don't remove a victim from the immediate danger zone, you may not be able to do much in rescuing that victim. Now, that said, I want to get into my proper or my focus point, which is mediation as regards.
Barrister Iwejuo, can you start rounding up, please?
Yes, a mediation about domestic violence and sexual offenses. The truth is that domestic mediation can be applied at the earliest stage of domestic violence. Otherwise, when the violence becomes constant, you cannot do much with mediation in it. Why? Because that person that is the offender may not be able to be available. What do I mean by being available? Be available mentally and physically to understanding what you're talking about, mediation. And as well as most crimes cannot be mediated upon. Why? Because let me take for instance domestic violence or rape, as the case may be. It's a crime against the body of a person. You know, you can't just mediate on it. If it's a crime like stealing, you can say, okay, let's mediate. How much am I going to pay you for what is stolen or something? But this is against the body of a person. You can't take away that from that person. It's not just possible. Why do I say so? Because it lasts like a lifetime. So I would say very quickly that you can't successfully mediate on it. Okay, with that said, I also, because of time, I wouldn't want to go into other areas. Let me give other people the opportunity to talk. Maybe when it's a question and answer section, maybe I will be able to talk more. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Chinyere Madike, could you unmute yourself, please?